The chandeliers trembled above the Waywright Hotel ballroom. Crystal glasses caught the light, like tiny prisons, as 300 guests waited for the groom to walk out. He didn't. Lucas. Waywright stood at the altar in his charcoal suit, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the double doors. His best man leaned close. "You don't have to do this." Lucas said nothing. The board expected this. His investors demanded it. A public marriage meant stability, distraction from the funding scandal that nearly destroyed his architectural empire. The string quartet swelled. Heels clicked against marble. Ellie Hayes walked down the aisle in borrowed ivory satin, creases visible under the camera flashes. Whispers slithered through the crowd like smoke. She trapped him. "Look at her dress," former employee. "How desperate." She kept her eyes down, hands trembling around a bouquet of white roses. Each step felt like walking through glass. When she reached him, Lucas lifted her veil. The room fell silent. Her face wasn't what they expected. Soft features. Gray eyes the color of storm clouds over the Hudson. Dignified despite the humiliation pressing down on her shoulders. Lucas froze. His breath caught. Those eyes? He'd seen them before. In a photograph on his father's desk. A girl who survived the Riverside Bridge collapse. The tragedy that stained the Waywright name in blood and concrete. "Shall we begin?" His voice came out rough. Ellie nodded, lips forming a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's..." The officiant's words blurred together. When he said, "You may kiss the bride," Lucas leaned forward and brushed his lips above her forehead. Not touching. Not quite. Flashbulbs exploded. Gasps rippled through the crowd. As forced applause filled the ballroom, Ellie's gaze drifted to the back of the room. A man in a dark coat slipped out quietly. Watching her with an expression that sent ice down her spine, the limo pulled away from the hotel. City lights flickered through tinted glass. Lucas stared out the window, his reflection sharp and cold. Ellie clasped her hands in her lap. The wedding band foreign on her finger. "You know why this happened?" Lucas said finally. "I do." "Then don't expect anything else." "This is business," she smiled faintly. "Of course. I've worked for businessmen before." He turned to face her, surprised by her calm. Outside, the limo crossed the bridge that divided the city from Long Island. Neither noticed how both their gazes lingered on it. For Lucas, it was guilt. A reminder of the collapse that ruined his family's name. For Ellie, it was loss. The bridge where her father died. When the car arrived at the Waywright estate, servants opened the door. The mansion loomed ahead, windows dark except for one room lit upstairs. Lucas offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His touch was cold, but steady. The butler announced them. "Mr. and Mrs. Waywright." The words echoed down the marble corridor, hollow and grand, as the door closed behind them. Ellie looked up at the portraits lining the walls. Generations of Waywrights who built the city's skyline. None of them looked kind. Lucas stopped at the foot of the grand staircase. "Your room is upstairs. Second door on the left, and yours. East wing." He loosened his tie. "We won't be sharing." She nodded slowly. He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing?" "Yes. In 6 months, this ends. You walk away with enough money to clear your debts and start over. Until then, you smile for the cameras and stay out of my way." Ellie met his gaze, her voice soft but steady. "I don't want your money." Lucas stared at her, his expression cracking for just a second. "What?" Morning light spilled through tall windows, touching everything except the two people sitting at opposite ends of the oak table. Coffee cooled. Silverware gleamed. Silence stretched like a blade. Lucas folded his newspaper. "The board expects us at the charity gala next week." "Understood." Ellie's voice was calm, professional. He studied her. She sipped her coffee as if this were normal. As if marrying a stranger for 6 months didn't unsettle her at all. All his attorney arrived that afternoon with the contract. Thick, formal, filled, with clauses about confidentiality and separation. Terms: you'll receive monthly compensation, the lawyer explained, and an additional settlement at the end. Ellie looked at the numbers, then pushed the papers back. I don't want the money. The lawyer blinked. Excuse me? I'm not here for your money. She kept her voice steady. I agreed to this because I need time to clear my mother's medical debts before the bank takes her house. That's all. Lucas leaned forward. You're telling me you'd go through this circus for free? I'm saying remove the payment clause. I'm not for sale. The words hit harder than she intended. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Lucas stared at her for several seconds. Fine, if that's how you want it. His tone was cool. But something inside him twisted. After the lawyer left, Ellie remained seated, looking out at the frozen garden. You think this makes you noble? Lucas asked. She shook her head. No, it makes me free. He didn't respond. Just turned and left. In his study, Lucas sank into his leather chair. The city skyline framed behind him. He'd built towers that touched clouds, yet this quiet woman unsettled him more than any lawsuit. He pulled up her file. Employment record clean. Ordinary. She'd worked in his finance department for 3 years. Before resigning to care for her dying mother, nothing explained the defiance in her eyes that night. The mansion was quiet. Lucas returned late, rain following him. He paused outside her room, hearing faint piano music through the door, soft, haunting. The same melody his mother used to hum. He raised his hand to knock, then lowered it and walked away. The next morning, headlines screamed across every screen. Cinderella or schemer. Billionaire bride refuses money. Lucas's assistant smirked. It's working. Public sympathies shifting in your favor. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt exposed. When he returned home that evening, Ellie was in the garden, pruning dead branches. Old gloves, hair pulled back. Sleeves rolled up. You don't have to do that, he said. We have staff. She glanced over her shoulder. They won't touch your mother's roses. They said she'll never let anyone else. What? He stopped, caught off guard. You knew her? Only through her designs? Lee smiled faintly. She drew the original layout for this garden. It's in the archives. It's beautiful. Lucas looked around at the frozen vines, brittle stems reaching skyward. She used to say, gardens are like people. They look dead in winter, but they're only waiting. Waiting for what? He hesitated. For something worth blooming for. Ellie nodded slowly and returned to her work. He watched her for a long time before heading inside. Cold air tugging at his sleeves. Later that night, he found the contract folder on his desk. Her signature was there, precise, unshaken, without the payment clause beneath it. She'd written one line in neat handwriting, 6 months. No regrets. He closed the file and stared out the window toward the garden. Lights flickering in the distance. For the first time in years. He wasn't sure which of them had made the bigger mistake. Him. For agreeing to a marriage without love, or her. For believing she could survive one without being hurt. Days passed in careful distance. Lucas left early, returned late. Ellie moved through the house like a ghost, the staff whispered. They'd seen wives come and go in this family. None looked at the mansion like it was a burden rather than a dream. One night, Ellie wandered into the west wing. She found a locked room with frosted glass panels. That was Mrs. Waywright's studio, the housekeeper whispered. He doesn't like anyone in there. Later, Ellie found an old key in a desk drawer. She opened the door. Dust hung like mist. The room was filled with sketches of gardens. Delicate lines of lilies and roses, labeled in careful handwriting. In the center stood an easel with an unfinished drawing. A winter garden under snow. She stood there, tracing the pencil marks. That night, Lucas smelled old wood on her clothes as she passed him in the hallway. You went into her studio? I didn't mean to intrude, Ellie said. I was just curious. Curiosity isn't always harmless. She met his eyes calmly. Neither is grief. His composure cracked for a second. Then he turned away. "Don't go there again," she nodded. But the next morning, he found the door slightly ajar. She'd dusted the shelves. Placed a vase of winter jasmine near the window. He stood there, watching sunlight fall across the old sketches. For the first time in years, the room didn't feel like a tomb. He closed the door quietly, unwilling to admit the flicker of gratitude he felt. That evening, he passed the garden and saw Ellie talking with the gardener. Her hands moved in deliberate gestures. Sign language. "You know ASL," he said later, surprising himself. She turned, startled. "A little. The gardener's deaf. No one ever talks to him. So I thought I should learn." "You learned it just for him?" "I learned it because silence doesn't mean there's nothing to say." Her words caught him off guard. That night, he couldn't sleep. He walked through the halls and stopped outside her room, through the slightly open door. He saw her on the floor, surrounded by papers. Budget sheets, invoices, notes. She was balancing the foundation Counts' team had struggled to fix, without being asked. She was quietly cleaning up the mess that nearly destroyed him. He left before she could notice. The next morning, she found an envelope under her coffee cup, a note in neat handwriting. "The garden is yours to restore. Use whatever you need." No signature. But she knew. By spring, the first shoots appeared under melting snow. The gardener signed that the roses might bloom again. She smiled. Gloves muddy, heart oddly light. Lucas watched from the balcony, unseen. The house felt less suffocating now. One evening, he found her in the music room, humming softly as she sorted his mother's old records. "You like classical?" "It helps me think," she said. "Your mother had good taste. She used to play when I couldn't sleep." Ellie smiled faintly. "Then maybe you should listen again." She handed him a record. For the first time in years, piano filled the halls. Tender, distant, they didn't speak as they listened. When the record ended, she stood to leave. "Why do you stay so calm?" he asked quietly. "Because someone has to be." She walked away that night. As snow fell again, Lucas stood by the window, watching her silhouette in the garden below. For all the steel and glass he'd built, he'd never created anything that felt alive until she stepped into his house. And for the first time, he wondered what he would become when she eventually left. It started with a missing notebook. Lucas searched his office for blueprints. He found it on the piano beside a stack of envelopes addressed to a community art center in Brooklyn. Curious. He opened one. Inside were drawings. Not of buildings. Of bridges. Children's handwriting filled the corners. For Miss Ellie, when she returned from the garden, she froze. "You teach," he said, voice measured. "On weekends," she admitted softly. "Volunteer work. At a community center. For who?" Her eyes lowered. "Children who lost their families in the collapse." Lucas's expression hardened. "Which collapse?" She hesitated. "The Riverside Bridge." Silence filled the room like poison. That name still haunted Wall Street, still whispered through boardrooms like a curse. The bridge his father's company designed. The one that failed, killing dozens when a support column cracked under rain. Waywright and Sons survived, but the lawsuits, the guilt, the years of rebuilding never erased the stain. He stepped closer. "You knew." She looked up, eyes steady. "I didn't, not until recently." "And you still married me?" "I didn't marry you," she said. "I agreed to a contract. It didn't matter who you were. It mattered what I needed to do." "Which is what exactly?" His tone cut sharp. "Punish me? Redeem me? Teach me a lesson through kindness?" "No." Her voice trembled for the first time. "To finish what my father started." His chest tightened. "Your father?" He was one of the inspectors. "He warned them the foundation was unstable. But no one listened." She swallowed hard. "They blamed him when it collapsed. He lost everything. His job. His reputation. He drank himself to death trying to prove he wasn't at fault." Lucas stared at her, throat dry. "And you think I don't think," she interrupted, voice firming. I know it wasn't your fault. You were still in college? But your name, your company built that bridge. And every time I see your logo, I see the hole it left in the water. He looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Why didn't you tell me before? Would it have changed anything? Would you have refused the contract? Married someone else just to keep your conscience clean? Her words stung because they were true. He turned toward the window, stared at the frozen garden where her footprints marked the snow. So this marriage is revenge. No, she said softly. It's a beginning. A beginning of what? Rebuilding something that should never have fallen. For a long time neither spoke. When he finally turned, her face was wet with tears she hadn't wiped away. He wanted to say something. An apology. A denial. But the words wouldn't come. That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He stood in his father's old study, surrounded by blueprints yellowed with age. He found the file. Riverside Bridge Project. 2009, the inspector's report was there, flagged. Urgent foundation shows signs of stress fracture. Recommend immediate halt to construction. The name at the bottom, David Hayes, Ellie's father. Beneath it, memo from his own father. Recommendation rejected. Timeline non-negotiable. Proceed as planned. Lucas's hands shook. He'd known the bridge failed. Known people died. But he'd never seen this. Never knew someone tried to stop it. Never knew his father ignored the warning. The next morning, Ellie found him still in the study. Eyes red. Papers scattered across the desk. You read it? She said quietly. He nodded, unable to speak. I'm not here to make you carry his guilt, she said. But I needed you to know the truth. Why? His voice broke. Why didn't you scream at me? Blame me? Destroy me in the press? Because you're not him. She stepped closer. And I'm not my father. We're just two people trying to survive the wreckage they left behind. Lucas stood, closing the distance between them. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not offering forgiveness, she whispered. I'm offering a choice. Keep building walls. Or help me build something that matters. For the first time since they met, he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. What do you need? He asked. A memorial, she said. For the victims? Not a plaque. A real space. A garden where families can come. Where children can play without fear. On the site? Yes. He nodded slowly. I'll make it happen, she smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Thank you. But as she turned to leave, Lucas caught her wrist. Ellie, she looked back. I'm sorry. For all of it.
Oh.
She nodded. I know. Later that day, Lucas called an emergency board meeting. He announced the memorial project. Proposed using company funds. The room erupted. This is financial suicide, one director shouted. We're barely recovered from the scandal. It's the right thing to do, Lucas said firmly. Since when do you care about right? Another sneered. This is about her, isn't it? That girl you married? Lucas stood, voice cold. Her name is Ellie. And yes, this is about her. Because she has more integrity in one finger than this entire board combined. Leaving the room in stunned silence. When he returned home, Ellie was waiting in the garden. They'll fight you, she said. Let them, she smiled. You really meant it. Every word. For the first time, the space between them felt less like a contract and more like a promise. But that night, Lucas's phone rang. His best man. The one from the wedding. You need to see something, he said, voice tight. Lucas met him at a downtown bar. His friend slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Documents. Bank transfers. Where did you get this? Lucas asked. Private investigator. I hired him after the wedding. Something felt off. Lucas opened the folder. His blood turned to ice. The transfers were to David Hayes. From Waywright and Sons, large. Sums, monthly. For years. Dated after the collapse. Your father was paying him off, his friend said quietly. Hush money. To keep him quiet about the ignored report, Lucas's hands trembled. That's impossible. Hayes died broke. Not according to this. The payments stopped 2 months before his death. Right after, he threatened to go public. I'm saying your father might have done more than ignore a warning. Lucas stared at the documents, the world tilting beneath him. Does she know? I don't know. But if she finds out, Lucas stood abruptly. She can't. Not yet. Not like this. He drove home in silence, mind racing. When he arrived, Ellie was asleep in the garden chair, book open on her lap. He stood there, watching her breathe, and for the first time since they met, he realized something terrifying. He was falling in love with her, and the truth might destroy them both. Lucas couldn't sleep. The documents burned in his mind like acid. Hush money, threats, his father's signature on every transfer. He'd spent 2 days investigating, calling lawyers, digging through old files. Every answer made it worse. David Hayes had been paid to stay silent, then threatened when he wanted to tell the truth. 2 months later, he was found on the bridge, ruled a suicide. But the police report Lucas uncovered told a different story. Bruises inconsistent with a fall. No suicide note. Witnesses who saw another car. His father hadn't just ignored the warning. He'd silenced the man who tried to save lives. And Lucas had married his daughter. He stood in his study, staring at her photo in the employee file, smiling, innocent, unaware that the man she'd pledged 6 months to might carry the blood of her father on his family name. Knock at the door. Come in. Ellie entered, carrying tea. You've been in here for 2 days. I thought you might need this. He couldn't look at her. I'm fine. She set the cup down, studying him. You're not. What happened at the board meeting? Nothing I can't handle. Lucas. Her voice was soft. You can talk to me, can I? He finally met her eyes. Can I really? She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He wanted to tell her, wanted to lay it all out. But the words stuck in his throat. If she knew, she'd leave, hate him, destroy everything they'd started to build. Nothing, he said quietly. I'm just tired. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes, but she nodded and left. The next morning, the memorial groundbreaking was scheduled. Press cameras. Families of the victims. Lucas stood beside Ellie, watching children play on the future site. Listening to parents share memories of those they lost, an older woman approached them. Silver hair, kind eyes. Mr. Waywright, I wanted to thank you. My son died on that bridge. This memorial means everything. Lucas shook her hand, throat tight. It's the least I could do. And you, the woman turned to Ellie, David Hayes' daughter, aren't you? Ellie froze. You knew my father? He was a good man. Tried to stop it. The woman's eyes glistened. They called him a drunk, a fraud. But I knew the truth. He tried to save us. Ellie's voice cracked. Thank you. The woman smiled sadly and walked away. Lucas felt Ellie's hand slip into his. Trembling, he squeezed it, guilt crushing his chest. That evening, they returned to the estate in silence. Asterisk, as they entered the foyer, Lucas's best man was waiting. We need to talk, he said. Now? Lucas glanced at Ellie. Give us a moment. She nodded and went upstairs. In the study, his friend closed the door. There's more, he said, pulling out his phone. I kept digging. Found something you need to hear. Played an audio file. Lucas's father's voice. Recorded, angry. Hayes is becoming a problem. He wants to go public. We can't let that happen. Another voice. Younger, familiar. What do you want me to do? Make it look like an accident. The bridge. Poetic, don't you think? Lucas's blood turned to ice. Who is that? He whispered. His friend's face was grim. Your brother, no? Lucas shook his head. James was overseas. He flew back. 2 days before Hayes died, I checked the records. Lucas sank into his chair, hands covering his face. His brother. His father. Conspirators. Murderers. Does anyone else know? Lucas asked. But the door burst open. Ellie stood there, phone in hand, face pale, eyes blazing. Is it true? Lucas stood slowly. Ellie, is it true? Her voice shattered. Did your family kill my father? Silence. How long have you known? Tears streamed down her face. How long have you been lying to me? 2 days, he said quietly. I found out 2 days ago, and you said nothing. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm so stupid. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? She stepped forward. You married me knowing what your family did. You let me believe we could build something, that this meant something. It does, he said desperately. Ellie, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until what? Until it was convenient? Until you needed a way to clear your conscience? That's not fair. Fair. Her voice rose. My father died because of your family. And you want to talk about fair? Lucas reached for her. Please, let me explain. She jerked back. Don't touch me, Ellie. I want the contract ended tonight. His heart stopped. You don't mean that? I've never meant anything more. She pulled off her wedding ring. Set it on the desk. I'm done. She turned to leave. Wait, his voice broke. If you go, they win. My father, my brother, everyone who tried to bury the truth. She stopped, back to him. Stay, he whispered. Help me bring them to justice. Make them pay for what they did. Why would I trust you? Because I love you. Double quotes. Silent, she turned slowly, eyes wide. What did you say? I love you. His voice was raw. I didn't want to. I tried not to. And I know I don't deserve it. I know I'm asking too much. But please, don't leave. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You don't get to do this. You don't get to say that now. I know. You don't get to make me feel this way when everything is falling apart. I know. She closed her eyes. Breath shaking. I need time. Take all the time you need. She picked up the ring, held it in her palm. If I stay, it's not for you. It's for my father. To make sure the truth comes out, I understand. She nodded and left. Lucas sank to the floor, head in his hands. His friend knelt beside him. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes, Lucas said, even if it destroys me. The next morning, Lucas called his brother. We need to talk, he said coldly, about David Hayes. On the other end, James went silent. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And if you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to the police with everything I have. A long pause. You wouldn't. You'd destroy the company. The family name. Watch me. Lucas, you killed him. Didn't you? Silence. Then, quietly. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Lucas closed his eyes, heartbreaking. You're going to turn yourself in. If I don't, then I'll make sure the whole world knows what you did. James laughed bitterly. You think she'll stay with you? Once this goes public, you think she'll forgive you? I don't care. Liar. The line went dead. Lucas stood there, phone in hand. He'd just sacrificed everything. His family. His company. His name, for a woman who might never forgive him. But as he looked out the window toward the garden where she knelt among the roses, he knew he'd do it again because some things were worth more than empires. Some things were worth losing everything for. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters filled every seat. Outside, protesters held signs. Some for justice. Some for the Waywright legacy. Lucas sat in the front row, hands clasped. Beside him, Ellie stared straight ahead. They hadn't spoken since that night. She'd moved to the guest house, avoided him in hallways, slept with her door locked, but she stayed. The prosecutor called the first witness. James Waywright took the stand. Face pale, hand shaking. Please state your involvement in the death of David Hayes, the prosecutor said. James glanced at Lucas, then away. I was following my father's orders, he said quietly. Hayes threatened to expose the ignored report. My father said we couldn't let that happen. So you killed him? I didn't mean to. James's voice cracked. I just wanted to scare him. We argued on the bridge. He slipped. I panicked and left. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. And you let the world believe it was suicide? Yes, the prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Lucas watched his brother, feeling nothing but emptiness. The trial lasted 2 days. By the end, James was convicted of manslaughter. The Waywright company faced criminal negligence charges. Assets frozen. Reputation destroyed. Everything Lucas built, gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mr. Waywright, how do you feel about your brother's conviction? Do you regret coming forward? What happens to your marriage now? Lucas pushed through without answering. Ellie followed. Silent. They drove back to the estate in crushing silence. When they arrived, Lucas parked and turned off the engine. Say something, he whispered. What do you want me to say? Her voice was hollow. That you don't hate me. She laughed bitterly. I don't hate you. I hate that I don't hate you. He looked at her, hope flickering. These last 3 weeks, she said, I've been trying to convince myself to leave, to walk away and never look back. But you stayed. I stayed because leaving would have been easier. And I'm tired of taking the easy way out. She finally met his eyes. Your family destroyed mine. You could have hidden the truth, protected your name, but you didn't. I couldn't, he said. Not after everything you taught me about what really matters. Tears filled her eyes. I'm so angry at you. I know. But I also saw you lose everything to do the right thing. He reached for her hand, hesitated. She took it. Where do we go from here? She asked. I don't know, he admitted. The company's gone. The estate will be sold to pay settlements. I have nothing left to offer you. You never understood, did you? She smiled through tears. I never wanted what you had. I wanted who you could become. His breath caught in the man who opens locked rooms, who listens to silence, who tears down empires to tell the truth. She squeezed his hand. That's who I fell in love with. You love me? God help me, I do. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. No, she whispered. You don't. But maybe that's not the point. They sat there, holding each other as the sun set over the garden she'd restored. 6 months later, the estate was sold. The Waywright name faded from skyscrapers. Lucas and Ellie stood in a small apartment in Brooklyn. Boxes everywhere. Second-hand furniture. A life rebuilt from nothing. It's not much, he said. It's ours, she replied, smiling. He'd taken a job as a contractor. She taught full-time at the community center. The memorial garden was finished. Families came every day. At night, they'd walk through it together, reading the names etched in stone. David Hayes among them. Do you think he'd forgive me? Lucas asked one evening. Ellie looked up at the stars. I think he'd be proud. Not of what happened, but of what you did after, and your mother? Ellie smiled sadly. She passed 3 weeks after the trial, but she knew the truth before she went. She told me she was glad I found someone who understood loss. Lucas held her close. Do you regret it? He asked. Any of it. She thought for a moment. I regret the pain, the betrayal, the years my father suffered, but I don't regret us. What we became, what we're building now. He kissed her forehead. Neither do I. They walked back toward their small apartment, hands intertwined. Above them, the bridge lights flickered against the dark water. The same bridge where everything fell apart, and where, somehow, 2 broken people found a way to build something new, not perfect, not easy, but real. As they reached their building, Ellie stopped. Lucas. Yes. She pulled a small box from her pocket. Opened it. Inside were 2 simple silver bands. I know we're already married, she said. But that was a contract. A performance. She held out one ring. This time I want to choose you. Not because I have to. Because I want to. His eyes filled with tears. "Will you marry me?" she whispered. "For real this time?" He took the ring, hands shaking. "Yes," he breathed. 1,000 times? Yes. They slipped the rings on each other's fingers. No cameras. No witnesses. No grand ballroom. Just two people choosing each other in the quiet of a Brooklyn street. When they kissed, it felt like a beginning, not of wealth or power or empires, but of something far more valuable. A life built on truth, on sacrifice, on love earned through fire. Years later, they'd return to that bridge, to the memorial garden where roses bloomed every spring. They'd tell their children about the collapse, about loss, about the hard choices that define us, and they'd teach them that sometimes the greatest love stories don't start with a fairy tale. They start with two broken people brave enough to face the truth. Brave enough to choose redemption over revenge. Brave enough to believe that from the ruins of tragedy, something beautiful can grow. Lucas and Ellie stood at the water's edge, silver hair glinting in the sunlight. Hands still intertwined, the bridge stood strong behind them. Rebuilt, restored, a monument not to what was lost, but to what was found. The end.